And it looks like we're live. This was a huge blowout win for the Jazz. I wanted to say statement win, but it wasn't really a statement win because the Pelicans are the kind of team that the Jazz should be blowing out right now, especially Zion's out. We don't know when he's coming back. The Jazz are just a better team than the Pelicans, and it's really upsetting that in this back-to-back, we lost a really close one on the front end of it, and the Pelicans beat us last game. So it is a statement win to some extent because the Jazz came out. Um, the Pelicans, it was close for the first like 5 minutes, if that. So the Jazz really came out. They were dominating. They're winning by 40 at one point. Once you're winning by 30, 40 points, it's even they only won by 22 and only won by 22, but compared to 40, 22 is almost half, right? But once you get up there 30, 40 point lead in the second half, it's garbage time at that point. No one cares. It's so I'm not going to read into this game too much, especially since like the Jazz were playing great, the Pelicans weren't playing great. And then once you get to a blowout, you're not going to see the best from either team because they just kind of want to get to the end of the clock and kind of have some fun with it. At least the winning team, the losing team wants to get out of there and move on to the next game. Um, so with this being a blowout, I don't want to make it a live stream. Uh, Last game was rough. We have something to celebrate now. So let's appreciate this blowout win. Um, the tough thing with blowouts is there's not as much to analyze. I'll go over what I saw. I'll go over what I think there is to analyze, but I don't want to dig too deep. So this video might be super short if the live chat doesn't get going. I'll try to stall to give because I know it's live. So I need to give everyone some time to see that we're on and hop on and type some stuff up. But um, one th- and take this with a grain of salt. But these are things that I've been noticing as trends. And I'm saying take it with a grain of salt because it's a blowout. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I've seen it in other games. And I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to keep bringing it up until I see some fixes happen. Um, but so the Jazz, they won by 22 points. They were up by 40 at one point, but they shot 13 less shots than the Pelicans. Um, Now that works when you're shooting 56% and your opponent's shooting 43%, and your opponent takes 35 threes but only makes 8. But that's not going to happen all the time. The Jazz need to find a way to limit the shots of their opponents and find ways to get more shots for them. Um, and I'm not terribly concerned about it because the Jazz figure out ways to win. They like nights like tonight, they're incredibly efficient. So it's not super concerning, but it's something to keep an eye out for. And this is something that I've kept bringing up. Um, and with that, you want to look at offensive rebounding. Um, you can look at steals, blocks, but really the things that you want to look at are offensive rebounding, turnovers, and then I always like to look at points off of turnovers to see how bad it is, because like not all turnovers are made equal. A turnover with half a second left on the clock before the end of a quarter is probably not going to lead to a shot on the other end. Um, so with that, with rebounding, they gave up 7 extra offensive rebounds. That probably led to 7 extra shots. Um, and that makes up for a little over half of the differential. And then when it comes to turnovers, they gave up 3 more turnovers and 25 total points off of turnovers. The Pelicans got off of the turnovers that they took from the Jazz. So I don't know how that math adds up. The Jazz took about the same number of free throws. Um, but those are things that I'm looking at that I'm a little concerned at. The Jazz had 18 turnovers. They forced 15. They shot 13 less shots, gave up a lot of rebounds. So obviously, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about a blowout win, but things to keep an eye on. Like even if the Jazz have won every game, I'd probably pick out something that they need to work on, and that's a good thing, especially since They've gotten off to a slower start than I would hope. They've lost some games that they should have won, and it's stuff like this that you lose games because when you're shooting great, the Jazz can get away with shooting a lot less shots. But we've seen games already this season. We've seen lots of games this season where the Jazz weren't shooting that great, and if they had a couple extra shots, that could have made been the difference maker. Um, so these are things that need to be cleaned up. Being a little bit more aggressive on the offensive rebounds, um, and just solidifying the defensive rebounds because it's not that we're not getting offensive rebounds; it's more that we're giving quite a few defensive rebounds. I mean, no, we're giving up offensive rebounds to the other team, which would be counted as a defensive rebound for the Jazz. I'm just rambling at this point. Um, so that's kind of what's going on. That's what I'm seeing. That's one thing that needs to be tightened up. And I've been complaining about turnovers this whole time, like since the beginning of last season. I've not seen anything fixed, and honestly, I think it's a lot better than it was. I don't think there's been a big fix. I think it's just a few players getting a little bit more confident with the dribbling. A few players having slightly better court vision. All that stuff kind of adds up. Um, it hasn't made a big fix, but I think it's made enough of a fix that it's not my number one concern anymore. Okay, I said I was going to be quick with that, but that took quite a while. But that's my rant for tonight. Let's talk about more exciting stuff with the box score. I put in the description that there wasn't really one like for when I go live, I try to highlight some player that it's probably Donovan Mitchell if I had to pick one. He's a high scorer barely. He had 21 points. He was 9 for 17 from the field, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, a block. Um, I like seeing Donovan Mitchell impact the box score more than just points. And he didn't make up in the point column, but he made his mark in other places. We also saw Jordan Clarkson come off the bench with 20 points. We saw Rudy Gay have a great night off the bench. Um, both of them were our highest plus minus players tonight. Rudy Gay had 13 points, 7 rebounds, and a steal. If we can see those averages, I think he at that point he'll be exceeding expectations. And Conley had 20 points. Ingles had 15. Gobert didn't do much, but he didn't really need to. Um, I guess he could have done a lot more on the rebounding side of things. Um, like I was talking about when I was going over the team stats. But granted, the Pelicans do have better big men than a lot of teams in the NBA. They have Valanciunas, who he's been having a great year. Tonight's game, he was mediocre, 12 points, 12 rebounds, but he's been having a great year. He's a center who can stretch the floor. He didn't hit any threes tonight, but that always makes it a little tougher on Gobert. It takes him out of the paint area. He'll usually get less rebounds against centers like that. Um, Jackson Hayes was actually the high scorer for the Pelicans, um, and only 8. I don't know if that was against Gobert or Whiteside. I wasn't paying attention to that, but I'm actually. And they also have Hernan Gomez, which uh, I'm biased. I'm a University of Texas fan. Jackson Hayes is from University of Texas, so I don't know a ton about Hernan Gomez, but I think they should have been doing a little bit more with Jackson Hayes. Um, even if it's not long term for the season, I think at least tonight, obviously Jackson Hayes had a great night. It was kind of I'm assuming if he only had 8 minutes, it was kind of garbage time minutes. You're not going to have 15 points and then you just bench him for the rest of the game. You if someone's hot like that, you're going to keep sending him out there. So not to spend time on the Pelicans, but that might have been the Pelicans have some tough centers. A lot of teams in the NBA have really undersized centers or centers who really aren't built in the same way Rudy Gobert is that can't challenge him as well. So that might have been one reason why he didn't have a great game, but I can tell you, like he wasn't trying to go and make a dent in this game after the first quarter. The game was almost decided at that point, and the Jazz kept playing with energy through almost the entire game. Right at the end, it was kind of lazy, but when you have that kind of lead, they were winning by 14 at the end of the first. You really just need to keep the energy up, and especially when you're a more talented team, and you'll win. So I'm excited about the blowout. The Jazz, real quick, let's look at the standings and the schedule. If my computer will allow me. Um, let's pull it. But yeah, the I believe they're still third in the West. They've kind of had a winning start. They're 13-7 right now. Um, I'm not happy with it, but it could be worse. We're looking at the Warriors have um, a historic start. They're actually right now, and I don't think this will happen. I think that they'll hit a couple bumps in the road when Klay Thompson gets back, trying to get him into the rotation, figure that out. Um, but Golden State, they're on pace to tie the all-time wins record, which is what they set back in 2016. So they're on pace to win 73 games. The Phoenix Suns are half a game behind them at 17-3. So with teams like that in the West, if they continue that level of play throughout the season and into the playoffs, that it makes the Jazz look like they're not actually that good, which I think they are. I think a lot of those wins they could have had and they just let slip. They've had some sloppy games and they need to tighten that up before the playoffs. And like I've been saying for this whole time, I'm okay with the Jazz pulling off a 3 or 4 seed if it means they're playoff ready and they're playing their best basketball they've ever played come playoff time. So I'm not concerned about it. I think there's a lot to iron out. There's a lot to fix. But being at 3 at this point is great. And looking at the West right now, it's kind of weird. Um, it's it's a little less competitive than I was expecting, and I don't know if you heard this. It's been making some news, but right now the East actually has a better record overall than the West, which is if that keeps on through the season, I think that will be the first time that has happened since Michael Jordan was playing. So that could be a kind of big deal. I don't know if it matters as much anymore because the All Star game isn't East West anymore. So um, but it does matter come playoffs, which I guess is what really matters. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. The Jazz are in an okay spot, but they could be in a better spot. Luckily, other teams in the West haven't been performing as well as expected. So it's a comparative thing. The standing it's not an absolute thing. So I'd like to see a lot of improvements, but comparatively to most of the teams, they're looking really good. Um, Now let's hop into their schedule real quick, and then we'll close this off. And once it's not live, we'll just have to keep the conversation going in the comment section for anyone who didn't make it for the live part. Um, Sorry, I should have had this pulled up, but normally I just go through the stats and the standings and schedule is more of a garbage time thing, like what's going on now in the live stream, or it's more of a endings are going to impact playoffs towards the end of the season. But they just beat so we just had our back to back with the Pelicans. Um, Next game is in 2 days, and it will be at home versus the Blazers, which they've been underperforming this year by quite a bit. Um, Even last year, I thought the Jazz were a considerably better team, so I'm not too worried about that one. Now, uh, and then they have a nice long break. So Monday's the next game. Then they don't play again until Friday. That is also at home against Boston. So any nagging injuries, anyone who needs rest should get plenty of rest right here in this week. They get to stay at home, and then they have a 4 game road stretch, and this is going 2 weeks out, and this will get us almost to mid December, which is kind of crazy to think about how time flies. But they play Boston next Friday, and then they go on the road trip, play Cleveland, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Washington. So that's kind of a it's kind of weird going from Cleveland to Minnesota, then to Philly and Washington. So um, it's spread over 7 days, 4 games, 7 days road trip. It's not too terrible. I really like the Jazz schedule so far this year. Like I said, they just kind of let some games that they should have won slip. Um, so I'll put a wrap on that. If you have any comments on this game, or anything, that a take that I probably should have talked about that I missed, leave it in the comments, and we'll get the conversation going there, and hopefully we'll bring it up on another video, either whether that be a post game or a regular Saturday episode, and we can have that conversation then. But thanks for everyone who took some time to watch this on the live stream. Seems like it's kind of a dead night. It's kind of hard to predict that. Sometimes live blowouts are huge, and sometimes blowouts are boring for live streams. So I kind of took a shot in the dark here. But thanks for joining us, and make sure you tune in for our next video. I don't think it'll be a live stream, but it might be Monday evening. So thanks. Have a good night.